everyone, I'm Bon and welcome back to another episode of Politics for Beginners. Today we'll be discussing election and voting. So firstly, we have to understand what election and voting are. So election is when people campaign for a particular spot, for example, a government official or the president. Voting is where normal citizens vote or give their chosen agreement to make that person what they want. For example, a president, a government, a ruler, a landlord, and so on. So firstly, we must understand what campaigning is. As I already said, it is a person who puts their time and their energy into putting their energy into the spot where they can become a higher ranked official. Why do people do this? Well, they actually really want the power to influence people, so they campaign. Campaigning usually takes really long. 1 or 2 months is not usually expected, but around 6 months is the usual expectant of the usual campaigning. So next, voting. There are certain risks when you go to vote. Firstly, your mom might try to stop you because she's sick and you might need to stay at home. Secondly, you might need an ID, be 18, have a registration citizen membership, and it's really complicated. But once you solve all of that, there are also a lot of minor problems. Firstly, we have people threatening you using brute force, death threats, threats to your family, threats to yourself, threats to your possessions, etc. We have people bribing. Bribing means that you give a lot of money and usually a ton of money in order to for the person who you're bribing to do whatever you want, except murdering. And lastly, rigging your vote. This means that the vote counter may get too lazy and then just pretend that he's counted all the votes, throw the votes out, and then just press random numbers to explain which candidate gets the most. And that vote counter might influence the votes in his favor. So these are the main ways that you have voting risks. And secondly, we might understand that there might be certain people who can't vote, like me. So why do I can't vote? So the first thing we need to understand is which people cannot vote. Firstly, army. In some countries, the army is associated with violence and the idea that they might seize control. However, they don't exactly do that. They only have the power of normal citizens. Next, prisoners. I think this is quite obvious that prisoners have a really bad mind. They are influenced by the dark things they do and are unable to vote. And under 18s, even though you are 17 and a half, you don't get to vote. Because 18s is when you get independent, like literally independent. Your mom, your dad can kick you out of the house and you can do whatever you want. No one's going to stop you. However, under 18s are still in control, some type of control or a little bit of control by their parents, meaning that they usually can't do whatever they want. That means that they don't have the power to influence their situation of voting like over 18s or 18 teenagers. So lastly, we have the importance of it. So firstly, the importance of election and voting is quite simple. Firstly, it gives us a government from voting, obviously, and election. It makes everything quite simpler than just choosing and measuring every micrometer of each one's ability. Secondly, it organizes levels of peace. This means that the higher you go, the more influence you have over the people or citizens or army or prisoners. This means you can influence different laws, create new ones, and enforce old ones in order to maintain peace for your country. But the lower you get, you actually have no control at all, even if you're over 18, according to the rule of your country. So, in conclusion, election is when people put their names forward to become president or stuff. The voting risks are threatening, being bribed, and being rigged. The no voting policy is for the army in some countries, prisoners in most countries, and under 18s, almost every country in the world. And lastly, the importance is that election and voting creates a government and organizes different levels of peace. So that is all for today's episode. Goodbye!